Hello ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be working on something that I've struggled to find information of on YouTube. I've been working on a couple of my own personal shortcuts recently and trying to do a few different things, and I've struggled to find information surrounding some of the things that I want to do. Even some of the videos that state that they're more for intermediate or advanced level, I'm finding that they just do not cut the mustard, and that stuff is still way too simplistic and isn't covering the things that I think are actually relevant in order to be able to create kind of more complicated shortcuts. Now, one thing I believe that we need excuse me, when working on these shortcuts is the ability to do things like use an API. APIs are hugely important because they allow us to do so many more things with shortcuts than we can do sort of as standard. And using APIs, we're able to get bits of information and manipulate that information to give output information to the users who are using our shortcuts. So here's what we're going to do. We're today going to recreate this shortcut that I've made. It's a very simple shortcut and I've called it Cinema API. It's basically using the cinelist.co.uk API to get information about showtimes for things that are on the cinema. So let's just run the shortcut and it will give you a brief idea of what it is the shortcut does. So we're just going to run it now. It brings up a list of cinemas within a local area. You click the cinema and it then tells you the listings of everything that's on. So today, if you wanted to go down and see any one of these movies, the bit underneath is, so for example, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, you could see that today at 10:05, 4:55, 6:30 and 8:25, and it gives you all the different bits of information. And then if you wanted to click on one of them, it will then just give you a little result that says the movie How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World and the showtime. How do we do that, I hear you ask? Well, this is what we're going to cover today. So let's create ourselves a new shortcut. Let's go in and we will name this shortcut YouTube and then Cinema Tut. YouTube Cinema Tut. Okay, done. We can mess about with the icon and stuff, but I don't really feel a need to do that at the moment, so we're not going to bother. The first thing that we're going to add into here is a dictionary. Now, we're going to have more than one dictionary in this particular shortcut, but we're only going to add them in one at a time because that's all we need to do at this particular point in time. So let's add a new item to this dictionary. We're going to add a text field, and the key for this is going to be API underscore. There it is. Sorry, I don't know how to do underscore on an iPad. I normally do this on phone. API underscore URL. Now, this particular key could be anything you want it to be. It doesn't have to be API URL. I use that because it helps. It's something that I remember and I know what that is. So put something in there that's going to be a reference point for you, that you know what it is. The key can be anything, but just be aware that you are going to reference that later. So you do need to know what the key is because you are going to reference it later on. And then in the API URL, we are going to put the first part of this request part of the API here. So you could do this one of two ways. You can either include this backslash at the end, in which case you don't include it in the other components of the API URL, or you can just go to the .co.uk and then you start all of your other API calls with the backslash, and that will make more sense later on. For now, just know that you can type either this bit here as highlighted, or you can type it to .co.uk, whatever way you want to do it. So let's put in HTTP. You can copy and paste this, by the way, but because I'm on the PC and the iPad at the same time, I'm not able to copy and paste over, which is somewhat unfortunate. So I'm going to have to type things out. So api.cinelist.co.uk, and I am going to leave the backslash not there. So I'm going to do it without the backslash, and I just need to remember that later on I have to be able to remember that. So that's the first bit done. We've added in the API URL, which is used to communicate with the Cinelist servers and get the information. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add another text field, and let's put in postcode underscore API, and here we're going to add in the postcode part of the API call, which is going to be this bit here. Now we don't include the postcode at the end because if you see at the top here, this is actually it. Actually, this is the actual construction of it. So it's /search /cinemas /postcode / and then the provided postcode here. So we can see that in practice here. So what we're saying is the /search /cinemas /postcode, and then it's got an example postcode here. Now those of you that aren't from the UK, you're obviously not going to know what this is. It's the same equivalent as a zip code, but this is a UK postal code. And I happen to know this is a valid postcode, so that's how I know what it is. If you were coming in, you know, from a different area of the world that doesn't use postal codes like this, you might struggle to know what that bit is, but that is a postcode anyway. So let's type in exactly what it says on here we need to type. So we're going to start with a /search /cinemas, and it's cinemas with an S, not without, so make sure you get your spelling right on this because otherwise it won't return anything. Postcode, and then we're going to finish it on the /. /. There we go. So that's the postcode API part done. So we've typed this bit into that box, and that's our second field on our dictionary as well. So the next bit that we're going to do is we're just going to add the bits of information and the data that we need to start off with, and then we'll manipulate it. So we're going to add another text field. Now, on the coordinates one, you will notice this time that it is a little bit different. We have got a latitude and a longitude, and there's a / in between them. So that's actually important. We need to remember that. So when we're doing this, you can see with the example down here, we've got the first part, which is the API URL, followed by the second part, which is the coordinates part of it, and then we've got a latitude / here, and then longitude. So we need to make sure that we remember that later on, and we'll highlight that when it gets to that point that we need to remember it. So what's the next bit that we're going to look at? So get the film times for a cinema. The day query parameter is an offset to get times for a day other than today. I actually feel like that's not the best description of what the day parameter actually does. I'm presuming, and this is just an assumption because I don't know, this is the only documentation that I've seen. I think maybe if you put like day equals 1, then it's offset of 1 day from today, i.e. tomorrow. If you put day equals 2, that would be the day after tomorrow. I don't feel like it's the best the best way of doing it, to be honest, but that's the way they've opted to do it. So we're going to add in this get times cinema bit here. Right, we're going to leave it there, but there is a bit of an issue here in that we need to provide 2 bits of information here. So because they've included this day as an offset, this last bit here with the question mark is an offset, we need to have that as an option potentially for doing searches for other than today if we wanted to add that into our shortcut. You'll see in the example shortcut I did in the beginning that there was no offset. It was just giving you the details of the movies today. If you wanted to give someone the option to have say a menu that pops up and it says when would you like to search for movies, today, tomorrow, the next day, yada yada yada, we would need to be using this day offset here. Again, this will all make sense, just follow along with it and we'll fill in the blanks of information that are missing. But for now what you need to know is we're going to add in an option as day underscore equals question mark day equals. So we're basically doing this last bit here, and as you can see it's asking you for an integer, which is a number. So we are seeing here in this example they are doing a search to get the times at the cinema, and it's provided, they've got a venue ID here of 7530. This is the venue ID here. Now, what is that venue ID? Well, when you search the cinemas based on any of the different things that we've got, whether it be postcode, location, or coordinates, it returns a list of the cinemas that are within that area. And part of the information that you get back, so you've got this JSON here, part of the information you get back under the cinemas is the ID. So you can see in this top one here, 7530 is actually the ID for Cineworld in Luton. So when they're getting the times here, this is from Cineworld in Luton because the IDs match up, 7530, 7530. And you'll see if we scroll through here, they have different numbers. So Empire Hemel Hempstead, for example, is 7152. The Odyssey at St Albans is 9105. So they've all got a unique identifier, which is the ID. So that is what you provide in order to get the cinema times, right? So we've added in the date API. There's one other thing that we can do. You'll see when we run this shortcut, you'll see that there's this little, there's like a black cinema icon on the left hand side there, like a movie reel. It's sort of at the edge next to the title. That there is an icon. Now you can add icons into menus. There's a really good tutorial on Reddit of how to make your menus look a bit more stylized with icons, etc. I forget who it's by, sorry, but I will put the link in the description below, so I would highly recommend going and checking out that Reddit tutorial. That is actually how I managed to work out how to do stylized menus, and it's a really top-notch tutorial. So I would highly recommend that you go and watch that, read that up, and it will give you all the information about how that works. But yeah, so back to where we were. We're talking about icons. Now, if you want to put an icon in, there are a number of different ways that you can use the icons within them. The way in which we're doing it here is we have got a cinema icon in a dictionary value that is base 64 encoded. Now, what does that mean? I hear you ask. Well, base 64 is basically a way that you can display images with text. So that black cinema reel icon is actually this field of text right here. So all of this text actually, when it's ran, will make that black cinema icon. Now there are various ways that you can do it. You can either base 64 encode an image and use that, or you can pull the image directly from the web and use that. There are benefits to both, I suppose. If you wanted to host an image on your own web hosting platform and then pull that, it meant that if you wanted to change the image across all of the different shortcut people that are using the shortcut, rather than having to update the shortcut, you could actually update the image on your web hosted platform and it will grab the new image instead. If you do it base 64 and you want to add a new image to it or change an image, you would then have to push an update to the shortcut, which would then mean that every single person that's using the shortcut is going to have an update. So it can be a bit more cumbersome and a bit more annoying, but base 64 is quick. You don't need to go and pull the image from the web, download it to display it. It's really fast. You could actually do both. So you could have it pull the image once, base 64 encode it into a variable in the app, in the shortcut, and then use that same variable every single time, because as you will see, all of the cinema icons are the same. So you could do it that way. So you could actually use a combination of both if you wanted to, or you could just store the image as a variable itself, not base 64 encode it at all, just store the image and do it that way. There's loads of different ways basically, but if we want to use that same base 64 encoded image in this particular setup, what we're going to do is add a dictionary, and we're going to add a new field, call it text, and call it cinema, let's call it real underscore icon, and done. And then we're going to go back into this one and we're going to select all, and we're going to copy that, and we're just going to paste that into here. I will do a tutorial if people want it on how to base in 64 encode stuff. It's so simple, but if you want a tutorial on that, I will do a tutorial that covers that at a later date for you. So now what are we doing here? We have got options here. So you could do this a number of different ways. The first way is that we could set it up with a menu. So let's do a menu, choose from menu, and what we will do here is delete these two, 1 and 2, we don't need those, and we'll add a new item and we will call it postcode, and then we'll return that, and we'll add another one and we'll call it location, and we'll return that, and we'll add a final one and call it coordinates, and we'll label that like that. So this, when run now, is going to show the user postcode, location, coordinates, and you would generally probably only use one of these, but we're going to do all three for the purpose of the tutorial, just to show you how you can do different things with different API calls, etc, etc, etc. So in a general use case, you would probably only have one, and as you can see with the one that I've got here, the mock test one that I made, I've just got a text field that you can put a postcode into or a place into or whatever. You would just need to change this API call here, but either way, I just run it automatically and just show the list of cinemas. You could do it differently and say, do you want to search based on your postcode, your location, or your coordinates, which is what we're going to do here. So anyway, less jibber jabbering and more action. So for the purpose of the video, I'm going to show you how you would get someone's location, postcode and stuff. So get location, get current location, pop that into postcode. You would click allow access, allow, and then get details of location, and you would drag that underneath. And then once you've done that, you can get various different bits from this details of location, including a postcode. So we would add that into there. And then when the shortcuts run, what it will do is it will go and get the current location of the device, get the postcode of that location, and then variable, and we could do that as you could label this whatever you want, but I tend to go user dash postcode. Right, and now we can use that in whatever way we wanted to. So then what we would do is we would create a URL, and this is where we have to do a bit of magic. So we are making a URL to do this initial API call up here. Know that URL for the API call has to be constructed like this for a postcode. So when we look at our first dictionary, we've got the API URL is the first bit, or let's go up into here in the example, it's this bit. So that's going to be the first bit that we need to call. So what we do is in the URL box, we select a magic variable because we've got two dictionaries, and we select the right dictionary that it's going to be, which is this top one here. What I always do is tap on that and click rename, and I rename the dictionary. So I'm going to call that API. So I now know when I'm referencing that elsewhere in the shortcut, I use the API dictionary, and I'm going to put in API underscore URL. That's the first component. So that is going to be the first bit in the component list of the API URL. Then we want the search cinemas postcode, which in our dictionary, yet again, we called postcode underscore API. So we add in API again, and I can do that from that hotbar this time because I know it's the right one. And we call it postcode underscore API. Now notice the things that I'm typing here is the get value for key. That is whatever you called the key in this original dictionary. So mine is called postcode API. You would put in there whatever key you assigned. So it doesn't matter what that key is, you just reference that key correctly here, right? And then after the backslash, comes the postcode. So we can then run we can actually use either the variable, or we can get the details of location, which would be the postcode here. So we can either use the variable, if we select variables, use a postcode, or we can go via the magic variable and we can select details of location. Both are going to do the same thing, because basically this just passes, this bit here is just the postcode that's been passed and set to a variable. So we can do it either or way. Setting variables is quite good when you're doing more complex shortcuts, especially if they're well labeled like this. It makes a big difference because it's very handy to be able to reference them at other points in the shortcut and have them as a friendly labeled name. So anyway, we'll use the variable here, why not, because we've set one up. Use a postcode. Okay, so now we've set up our URL, and that now would call, based on this, in the cinelist.co.uk API, it would call and it would get us a list of cinemas within that local area. Now I'm not going to run this because during my testing I worked out that it gives you my exact location, i.e. pretty much pinpoint precise to where I live. So I'm not going to run it this way. What I'm going to do is get rid of this, and I'm just going to add in a text box. HM. Right, so I'm setting a hard-coded postcode rather than getting the current location and getting the postcode. That's the only difference here. I'm just hard-coding it in. That previous way would work perfectly for anybody else, but I obviously don't want to broadcast on YouTube my exact pinpoint location of where I live. So what do we do then? Well, if we run this now and we select postcode, we will see that that is the API that has been constructed here. This is the API URL that's been constructed, and we can see that that's right. You know, if we compare that to here, it's exactly the same. So we know that this is now the right URL. So what do we need to do with the URL? Well, we need to get contents of the URL, which is going to get the contents that's fed back to us, and then we're going to set variable, and we're going to set that as cinema list. Okay, so now we're also going to quick look at that variable just so that we can see what's being fed back in. So let's run the shortcut again. Let's select postcode. It's getting the contents of that URL. Ba-bam, there we go. So this is a much more poorly formatted version of the details and information that are in here. So you will see distance Cineworld Luton, the first one on the top here is Cineworld Luton. The ID is 7530 and the distance is 0.60 infinity times 9. So it is giving us the right details back. Sorry, I keep moving this because I'm trying to scroll on the bloody website and I keep grabbing the wrong thing. It is giving us the right details back. So let's click done on that, and we now know that we're getting the right information. Quick looks are hugely important and hugely beneficial for things like testing. If there's a problem, it can help you highlight where the issue are. I use them almost like breakpoints, so it helps me to work out where things are going wrong. And if we come up against any issues, I will definitely show you how that works. So we've got a cinema list from the postcode. Now, how do we do that same thing, but this time with the location? So we get the location, which is going to be get current location, pop that in there. Then we get details of location, and looking at this in the API, we can see that the location is basically a name. Again, if you're not from the UK, you don't know about St Albans, but St Albans is a city name, it's a place. Like there are many other places, Manchester, Liverpool, London, they're all places, right? So the details of the location that we need is the city. That's the details that we need. And then we are going to, just as we did before, set variable. Again, you don't, well, let's do it without that this time, because you don't actually need that in this example, because I'm not going to use these variables later on, so we don't need it in this particular occasion. So we're going to go for URL. Let's construct a URL.
And we're going to put in there variables API underscore
The first part, we're looking at this here, so we've got the first bit done. What's the next bit? It's search cinemas location. So
location API is the bit we need next. So we have an API, we go into here, we got the key, location underscore API, okay. And then the
final bit, this time we would use the magic variable and we would select details of location, which is going to be the city. Now I could run this exactly as is because it just literally gives the city in which I live, but it's probably not the best idea still. I just don't feel comfortable broadcasting that. So what I'm going to do, this would work perfectly adequately fine, but I'm going to, as I did last time, very quickly hard code in so we've hard coded in their example. For those of you who don't know, actually you might not know, but this percentage 20 here represents a space. I don't know why it does that. I don't know if it's like URL or like the HTML markup language. I don't know what it is, but that is a space. So percentage 20 actually represents a space. So we know that that is st.space Albans. And that's what I've written exactly as is in this text box as well. So the next bit, we're going to do the same as we did last time. So we're going to get the contents of the URL. Enter. Oh, but that's the same. Well, that's fine because we're only going to run one at a time. And then what we're going to do at the end of the menu is get variable outside the menu. So you can see you've got end menu. We're going to choose cinema list and we're going to quick look that cinema list. So it doesn't matter what option we choose now, we'll be able to see the cinema list. And let me show you what I mean. So if we run the postcode, bam, we got our cinema list and it's based on this postcode here at the beginning, the LU12HN, right? That's the postcode it's based on, done. And if we run the shortcut again this time, and now we select location, we're now going to get a different list of cinemas based on a different postcode, AL11DW. Now, do not ask me why they ask you for a location and then convert it to a postcode. I don't know. That's just the way that their particular API works. But they ask you for a location, and what they do is they take that location in here, and you can see here it's converted to a postcode. It's given us a slightly different postcode. I don't know whether that's luck of the draw, I'm not sure, but it has provided us with a different postcode to the postcode that's in there. But either way, it's a different list of cinemas this time to the first list. So we're just getting the variable. This is setting the variable based on the user's choice, and then we are using that variable and having a quick look at it. So for the last one, it's going to be coordinates. Now this one is a little bit more complicated. So we're going to get location, get current location into coordinates. We are going to set variable as lock. We're just going to call it lock. You would name this something a bit more sensible, but I'm just going to call it lock for now. We're going to get variable, and you'll see in a minute why we have to set a variable. We're going to call it lock. We're going to get lock. We're going to get details of location, details of location from lock. So we're feeding in the variable lock into this, and we're going to select latitude, and then we're going to get variable again. So now you can see why we need to set a variable, because we have to use this actual piece of information twice. Choose variable, lock, and then we're going to go get details of location, and we're going to select longitude this time. So we have to set the current location as a variable because we need to get two different bits of information from it. We actually need to get the latitude and the longitude from it. Okay, so that's why we're setting this as a variable this time, so that we can use it twice. There's no point in getting the location twice, and I'll tell you the reason why. If you do it with the location just once and you run it, you will see to get the current location of the device takes ages. It takes ages. It's like, I don't know why it's so hella slow. Apple, fix that, but it takes such a long time. So you don't want to get the location once, set the latitude, then get the location again, set the longitude, which you could do, it would work, but you don't want to do it because it takes so long. So we get the location once, we set a variable that's stored, and then we do whatever it is we want to do. So we set those two there. We're then going to do a bit of our compiling a URL together. So this URL is going to be variable we would add in our various different bits here. So we select a magic variable, and we know that we need the latitude first as per the URL. So we're going to select latitude. Then what do we need to remember from earlier on? That's right, the backslash. The backslash here is important. We need to make sure that there's a backslash. So then from the backslash, we select another magic variable, and this time we get the longitude. And that right there, that right there would work perfectly. So you could even rename these if you wanted to. Rename. Recommend renaming things as and when you can, because then if you do use them at any other point in the shortcut, they're already renamed perfectly. So that would work absolutely fine. That would get the location, it would set a variable, it would get the bits of the information that we need, and then perfectly. Now, yet again, I don't want everyone to have my precise lat and long. So what I'm going to do is very quickly hard code this information. So either way, they're now hard coded in. So now if we run this and we select coordinates, it's going to take our coordinates and it's going to give us the details, which again is the same. It's the same postcode. We do actually have a different list of cinemas. We've got Cinewhirlpool and Odeon BH2, whereas this one's got ABC, etc, etc. Now I happen to know, because I know people that live in Bournemouth, I happen to know that the ABC is closed down, the Odeon has closed down, it's no longer there, Bournemouth Pier is no longer there, ABC again, Odeon Bournemouth again, they're closed down, they're not there, Empire Pool is now not there, it's now Cineworld. So actually a load of these cinemas have closed down. This list on the iPad here is correct. That is the right list of cinemas, I happen to know. So the one on their example is outdated and it's now wrong. So anyway, we're getting all of our list of cinemas from each of the different ones, and they're all providing us with a different list now, which is compiled into our variable cinema list. So what do we now do with it? Well, we are going to get a dictionary, get dictionary value. What's going on here? Get dictionary value from this list. Now a JSON is basically, when you do dictionaries in your shortcuts, is basically a JSON file. If you've ever done a dictionary and written it out, it basically is compiled pretty much the same as a JSON file. So what we are going to do is we're going to create a dictionary from the list that's returned, i.e. this list in this box here. And the key that we need is anything after the cinemas, within the cinemas section. So we're going to put in here the key as being cinemas. Now you can see cinemas is in quotations here, and then it goes into our list of all the different cinemas. Now each bit of information between two curly brackets here, this is classified as one piece, one part of the cinemas section, I suppose. Imagine a cake. Cinemas is the cake, and these are slices of cake. Each one of these is a slice of the cinemas cake. So these all make up cinemas. So we're using the cinemas key, and then what are we going to do with each one, I hear you ask? Well, we're going to repeat with each, and this is, remember, we're repeating with each item in the cinemas list. We're going to create a text file. And then this part here is the bit that is from Reddit to do with the business cards, right? And the business cards part is very important. I will obviously link this in the text below, as I've said. But yeah, this is what we need to create. We're creating a business card out of it so that it shows up nicely in a list. We can get icons and stuff with our information. So this here doesn't exist. For the photo encoding, we're going to select a magic variable. We're going to select our real icon dictionary, and we're going to put in here real underscore icon. So what this is basically doing is it's creating a business card, like a contact. I'm going to rename this to, again, get in the habit of renaming stuff, guys. You will be thankful later on when you're doing more complicated shortcuts. We're going to call it the dictionary icons, and we're referencing the real icon, and this is photo encoding B for base 64, and then the icon. Like I say, there's a fantastic tutorial on this, and he's done a much better job than I could ever do, so please do go and check that out. We're going to set the name of each business card, and the example is going to be cinema .vcf, so that's creating a virtual contact. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a little bit of a hack here, get variable, and then from each one we're going to get the variable, get variable, select magic variable. We're going to select this set name, and we're going to select that as a contact because we're creating contacts within the shortcut, contact, default, and then we're going to rename it to cinema out. Okay, done. So that now is creating a contact for each individual cinema, and then we're going to add to a variable because there's going to be multiple of them potentially because there's a list of cinemas. So we're going to add to variable, and we're going to cinemas output, just so it doesn't get confusing. So cinemas output, and then we then do choose from list, and the list is going to be chosen from cinemas output, and then we're going to set variable as chosen cinema. Now why are we doing that? Well, because the user is going to be shown a list of cinemas, they're going to select one, and then we want to know which one they select. Okay, so let's run the shortcut now and see what happens. So we're going to go based on the postcode. It's going to show us a list of cinemas, and we have got our little icon there as perfectly working from the base 64 encoding. We'll select Cineworld Luton, and you can see that this is a contact. Okay, now when we're compiling the contact, making it, this is what we're setting. So the name, the nchar set here, we're setting as the repeat item. So each of these is going to be a repeat item, each of the components within. So the name, repeat item name, is this field here. So we're using this key. So we're saying the item that comes in from cinemas. So each one of these is going to be fed into our repeat with each. So for each one that's fed in, we want you to get the name field, the key field name, which would be Cineworld Luton, and that's going to make up the name of the, as you can see here, the name of the contact. So the contact name is Cineworld Luton, yeah. We're getting the ORG, which I don't know what that is, but I know which part it makes up of the contact is the bit underneath. So the 0.61 miles at the bottom here. We're going to get the icon for the contact, which we've obviously set up as a base 64 encoded image at the top. And that's the real icon. And then the notes, we're getting the repeat item ID. So it's the ID of the cinema, and this is the ID key here. And for that particular cinema, it's going to be 7530, the same as the example down here, 7530. Boom, there. Okay, so when we get the details of the chosen cinema, what do we want to do with it? Well, we want to get the variable, and we're going to put chosen cinema in there, and then we're going to do the same as we did before. We're going to repeat with each, we're going to create a dictionary. Now I don't know if this is the best way of doing it, but this is the way that I've always done it. We're going to add a text thing, key, and we're going to put name, and then in here we're going to put repeat item, and it's going to be as a dictionary, and then the reference is going to be name. Okay, that's important actually. These ones up here in the business card, these are also as dictionary. So it's the repeat item as dictionary, and then we put the key. If we want to grab a key from the field, so like distance, name, ID, we have to reference the JSON as a dictionary and then grab the key value based on the dictionary. Okay, so that's what we're doing down here. So then we create a second one, text, we call it ID. It's going to be the repeat item as a dictionary, and then we're going to put in here ID, okay, which is going to give us the ID. Now you can see where we're going with this. Done. And then we're going to set variable, then we are going to compile a URL, and we are going to have a URL with the variables. It needs to be MRID, done. So we need this to be variables, cancel, not magic variable, we need that to be variables. Interesting. We're going to take the cinema ID in as a dictionary, and the variable we want there is obviously ID. We don't want to feed it the whole of cinema ID, because if we do that, then it's going to be getting the name and stuff as well. So we only want it to be the ID part of the cinema ID. We're going to get contents of URL, which is going to return the list of times, etc. And then we're going to set a variable, as movie times. Okay, so we're now going and we're getting all the information, and we're setting the variable movie times, and let's quick look at that. Cancel, there was a quick look there. Okay, so let's quick look at this. So we're going to play it. We're going to select based on postcode. It's going through. We're going to select the Cineworld Luton. We're going to run this again. Just select a different cinema. How bizarre. So now we need to try and work out what's going wrong here. So if we get the contents of the URL, let's play it again. Let's look at it there before we set the variable and just see if it's getting past anything. It's empty. Interesting. We're getting the list. Choosing from it, we're selecting the chosen, we're repeating with each. Name is, oh, this is why. Okay guys, this is my error, I've worked it out. We're not actually getting the ID here, we're not actually getting the information here as a dictionary. We're not doing that here, because if you remember here, we're creating contact and we're setting the output as a contact. So by getting this as a dictionary now, this is wrong. We need this as a contact, and we need the contact name, and this is going to be contact also, and we need contact notes, because remember we set the ID of the cinema to go into the notes section here of the business card. Okay, so we actually need to be getting this. We actually need to be getting this as a contact, not as a dictionary, because it can't get the information because it doesn't know what we're trying to feed it. So now this will work. So let's run it again, and then we'll go based on postcode. We'll go Cineworld Luton, and there we go. We now have listings. So this is again why Quick Look is so helpful, because by going to Quick Look here, I can see that this isn't getting fed anything. If I put a Quick Look here and I was to change that, you would see that the ID variable is empty. So use Quick Looks to help identify problems within your shortcuts if you're having them. So we're now getting the movie list. So we're on the home stretch, ladies and gentlemen. We are on the home stretch. So now what do we do from here? Well, we get the variable movie times, get variable. In fact, we don't really need to get the variable. Let's just get a dictionary value. Get dictionary value from this list. And what's the, in this, I'll give you a couple of seconds. In the returned JSON here, what is going to be the key that we need to use in order to get the times? Okay, if you said listings, you are absolutely correct, because the listings is the header here with the square bracket. Listings is the header here with the square bracket, and then it goes into these with titles and times. Okay, so we're going to be using the listings key. We then want to do the same as we did before with repeat with each, and then in here we want to get a variable. Get variable. In fact, no, let's not do that. Let's do it a different way this time for the cinema times. This can actually be changed to icons and then real icon. Part of the reason why I'm doing it this way with creating a business card, you could do this differently and not create a business card this time, but I want to create a business card because it means then I've got an option to later on I can change the icon to be maybe the icon of the movie poster or something like that with a different API if I want to. So I'm going to create a business card now just so that later on I could have a different icon show up for each movie potentially in the listing of the movies when they come up. So anyway, here we're going to set this as repeat item, and we're going to have this not as name this time, because on the movies you can see it's called title Annie. So I'm going to have this as title. Okay, the distance we actually don't need. This can be this can actually be repeat item as dictionary, and then we can have, what's it called, times. Okay, and then in the notes I'm just going to be, for good measure, I like to add, if I don't have anything specific to go into the notes, I always just put the repeat item in there with another bit of information as needed. So I'm going to put the times in the notes as well, so that if I need to manipulate them in some way later, I've got them in the notes and I can use them that way as well later on. As we did last time, we have to set name for the business card. Set name, and we're going to call this one movies.vcf. Okay, and then we're going to get variable because we need to get it as a contact. You'll see when you read that Reddit post, you'll see that someone's commented below why we do this. Select magic variable, set name, and then we get it as a contact default, and then we add to variable, add to variable, and then we'll call this one movies out for good measure, and then choose from list, and that's going to display them all on the list, and then we'll set variable as chosen movie. And the reason that we're doing this is because we're going to show the little alert that we had before. So let's get variable, chosen movie. Then we need to extract the information that we want from the variable. So we're going to repeat with each, because don't forget we're now passing this in as a contact, and we don't want to show a contact, we want to show the information in a result. So we need to get the dictionary values from the contact. We're going to populate a dictionary so that we've got it back in a text format that's nice and easy for us to use, rather than the contact, which isn't so easy. We're going to call this title, and this is going to be the repeat item as a contact. Remember, this is a contact that we're passing in because we've created the movie's contacts as a contact, and this is going to be the name because we set the title as the name field earlier on. Then we're going to do another text field. We're going to call this times, and then we're going to set the repeat item as a contact, and this time we're going to get the notes, because the notes, we also set the times as being notes in here. So note is repeat item times. Then what we're going to do is we're going to show a result. This is the last bit of the puzzle here, show result, and that's going to be movie with that, and then we're going to do oh sorry, we need to set variable first. Let's set a variable, set variable in here as user dash movie, and then we're going to get this, and this is going to be variables user movie, and we're going to pass that in as a dictionary value, and that's going to be title. Okay, so we're pulling the title from this dictionary we've just created and setting that there, and then show times, we're going to put a variable user movie, and this time it's going to be times. Okay, now I know preemptively that this isn't going to work as intended, but I will show you what happens now and then how we fix the issue. So let's go based on postcode. It's going to go through, it's going to get a chosen list of cinemas. We're going to pick Cineworld Luton again. This time it's nicely converting all of our movies up for us, and there we go. We have a list of movies. We've got a little icon. These are all films that are currently showing at Cineworld and Luton. Everything looks great, but the one problem that we've got is if you look at the ORG, or the bit underneath the title, you will see that it's only showing one time. There's only one time there, but we know that each one of these movies probably is showing more than once today. On a Tuesday, it's going to have more than one showing. So here's the issue. The way in which the JSON returns to us the information, the times text is split up into new lines, etc. So we want to actually get the variable, of the repeat item, and then it says a dictionary because we haven't converted it into a contact list yet, and we want to get times. So we're going to get the times as they come in. Okay, we're going to combine the text, because of the way that it's passed it in, with the spaces, and then we're going to replace the text, and we're going to replace space with comma space, enter. Doesn't need to be case sensitive, and it is a regular expression. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set this variable here to be that replace text, and we're also going to set the notes to be that replace text as well. Okay, so that's now feeding our times in. Whoops. That's now feeding our times etc. in correctly. And let me put a quick look in here, and we will show you what's coming in from the variable, and then we're going to quick look again and show you what's coming out. Now this quick look is going to cause, we're going to select the same cinema that we've selected every single time thus far, which is going to be Cineworld Luton. Here we go. Right, so you can see for that first movie, which I don't know what the first movie in the list is, but it's got it as 3 separate individual parts. And the reason that is if we find one here, look, the way Times is constructed, Times is now its own subheading. So as we've used listings key with a square bracket on listings key, Times is now its own subheading with its own square bracket. So each one of these inside is classified as its own individual piece of that cake. So Times is its own slice, but in that slice you've got the Victoria sponge, you've got the jam filling, and you've got the icing, and they're all parts of that. They make up that slice of cake. So they're their own individual unique components, and as you can see here, they're all displayed on the iPad screen as individual. So then when we click done and it goes through the next step, now it's taken them together and then put a comma and a space in for us. So those same times of 10 past 2, 5 o'clock and 10 to 8, instead of being 1, 2, 3, they're now all in one section. We'll do it with one more. So this time we've got 10 to 2, 10 to 5, and quarter to 8, 10 to 2, 10 to 5 and quarter to 8. It goes through, it combines them in 10 to 2, 10 to 5 and quarter to 8, and they're now all in one section. So this is what we're doing. We're taking them, we're combining them with spaces, because they've all got a space between them, and then we're replacing the spaces with a comma and a space. So now when we run this shortcut and we select postcode again, it's going to go through, it's going to do it. We select Cineworld Luton, now it goes through, and now we will have all of the times showing underneath for each and every one. Now if we select one of them, so say Alita Battle Angel at the top, it's now going to show our result, which has got the movie and the show times. Now we could add stuff to this show result at the end there if we wanted to, because as you will see in the API, you can get different information for the cinema, including the name, the address, the town or city that it's in, the postcode, you can get the website, the phone, all that different information there, the latitude, longitude. So we could, if we wanted to, be really clever, and we could give them maybe a notification instead of a result, and with the notification we could include the website so that someone could just click on it and go straight to the website and book their tickets or something like that. You know, you could do something quite cool, but for the time being, that is the basics of how you work with a API within a shortcut. And just to show you that it works with the other ways as well, because obviously we set up location too, and this is a different area, so now it should do it should come up slightly differently. We'll have a different list of cinemas and then different cinema movie times. By the way, if you find that when you run a shortcut it's taking quite a long time, here's a little tip for you. You saw how long that took. If we click done and we run the shortcut from here instead on location, you'll see it's much quicker. I don't know why, but it seems to be that if you're running the shortcut with it open, it's trying to keep up with it doing lots of different things at once. So let's go for View Watford. What's on at View Watford today? And there we go. There's our cinema times, and we have more movies going on at View Watford. There's quite a few going on here, and you can scroll and you can select the movie and you get all the cinema times. And oh, let's have a look at Fighting with My Family. There we go, Fighting with Our Family. So the show result at the end at this point is kind of a bit redundant because you get the information all in the list anyway, but the whole purpose of the show result is to show you that you can do things with the information afterwards. So it doesn't have to be a show result. You could do a notification. Show notification and allow access, allow. You could do that instead, and you could just take this information here, select all, copy and paste, and then we'll call this cinema times, and we'll get rid of that, and then we'll click done, and this time we'll run it from cancel. Oh no, it did work. Sorry, I was going to run it from coordinates, but it did work. We're going from coordinates this time, and we're going to select, what do we want to see today? Let's go for the Lego Movie 2. I like that. And there you go. Now they get a notification instead. And as I say, you could, if you wanted to, add more information to this notification. So you could do a couple more things with the shortcut. You could add a couple more bits of information based on the API from here, and you could feed them some more useful details. So there we go. That's how to work with a very basic API within shortcuts. Obviously the API is basic, the shortcut itself is slightly more complicated. I'm looking at doing another one for another video tutorial, and next time we would use it would be the tracked API, and they've got it on Apiary, and here you can do things with the tracked API, which is a slightly more complicated API. So you've got to go through authentication, you've got to create an app and get an app ID, then you've got to get an authorization from the user, you've got to get a token, and you can renew that token, you've got to authenticate devices. So I'm thinking about doing this for another video tutorial. So if this one's popular and people want to see that, we'll start working a little bit more with other APIs, such as maybe the tracked API, and look at what we can do with that. I haven't played with this one much myself, but obviously you can do different things with movies, etc. as well. So yeah, we can look at maybe doing that and creating something a little bit more complicated with a little bit more functionality. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to leave a thumbs up, comment, like, subscribe, all that jazz if you want to.